All right, so welcome to the collaborative workshop on Indigenous innovation of food, energy, water systems. We have close to 300 registrants, and so we ask if you're not a speaker, if you could stay on mute, and then we'll unmute when we get to the Q&A session. This workshop is funded by the National Science Foundation, the Research Traineeship Program. One of their program directors, Vinod Lohani, will speak later in this session. So if you could move to the next slide, Cara. This workshop was originally planned to take place in person at Diné College on the Navajo Nation. We are to stay in their beautiful dorms on campus, and we see photos of some of the places we would have visited, including the dormitories. The lower photo shows what the region looks like with the nearby Canyon de Chelly. Could you turn to the next slide, Cara? So during this workshop, we'll strive to bring the context through virtual and interactive sessions throughout the week. First, our CoInFEWS planning colleague, Don Robinson, will introduce the leadership of Diné College. And you see the leadership there, and he'll do the introductions. So Cara, if you could take the slides off and put them, and Don, take over.
Okay, hello everybody. Welcome. We've been planning this for a year. and we're the organizers have quickly adjusted to the new features of the landscape the last three months. So I'm very happy to present two leaders at our college, Diné College in Saline, Arizona, the Navajo College, one of two Navajo colleges for higher education. So Diné College is led by President Charles Russell, who will speak first. And Dr. Russell has been president of Diné College since August of 2017 and is responsible for many improvements and ongoing initiatives at the college to move us into a university structure. Dr. Russell has reorganized the academic departments to centralize schools under the leadership of deans and an academic provost, Dr. Geraldine Garrity. Dr. Russell has remodeled many buildings on our campuses and is now planning two large science, education, and research buildings, one in Shiprock campus and one at our Saline campus. Dr. Russell is the former director of the Bureau of Indian Education, the BIE, where he oversaw 183 K-12 schools, also Diné College and Navajo Technical University, our sister university college. Dr. Russell spearheaded a $1 billion reform and reorganization effort that focused on tribal sovereignty, self-determination, and self-governance as a cornerstone of school improvement. Prior to his work at the BIE, Dr. Russell served as the superintendent of Frog Community School, where he implemented a Navajo language immersion program, improved the financial operations, and secured $56 million in funding that resulted in the construction of a new elementary school, dormitories, and renovation of the high school. Welcome, Dr. Russell.
And Cara, could we focus on Dr. Russell?
Did that do it for everyone?
Just for, no.
I think once Dr. Russell starts to speak, it'll focus on him.
Yeah, I like the way that sounds. Well, good morning, everybody. First of all, thank you for this opportunity to speak to you via Zoom. We're getting so good at Zoom, we kind of take it for granted. And so, Alice, I've been there. I was at a board meeting on Friday and I couldn't get it to share my screen, and it seems like everything you do at the time that you need it most, it kind of fails you. But I want to first say thank you and welcome to Indigenous Innovations, which I think in a way is kind of redundant from my perspective, if you will. But at the same time, I appreciate the work that all of you are doing, because I look through the agenda and you're talking big ideas, and we need big ideas to fix today's problems. But more importantly, I think the ideas that you're speaking with, it is an idea that individuals can own as they move in and out of their education and their life's opportunity. And that's what I really liked about the agenda. It allows people to engage where they are, when they're there, and be able to then maybe have to step out but move back in. And this pandemic has forced us to look at the world, not in a new way, but to share our vision with others. Just because we are Navajo or Hopi or Pueblo does not mean we own this vision. For example, some of you probably are familiar with the conversation happening right now within the Navajo Nation's attempt to spend $600 million towards COVID-19. You see that there is an example of losing our way and forgetting our foundation. That is why Diné College was imagined into existence. Our stories matter, our voice matters, and our hearts matter. Likewise, in order to move forward with purpose, we need to imagine this balance of food, energy, and water into being. In this place of action, it is equally important to understand where we fit. As an institution, Diné College, University of Arizona, UC Berkeley, but also as individuals, whether from our indigenous roots or from outside of that area. How can we help? How can we lean on each other? A few years ago, I gave a commencement address at Haskell. And in that speech, I spoke of this place that I'm talking about. I gave it the name of Sovereignopolis. And it was this place that allowed us, Indian country, to do everything we talk about, everything we imagine about, everything that is within this conference. Sovereignty, sustainability, identity, all of those elements that allow us to be who we are as a people. Those were just words there at that time. But as I look back 5 years, we do see a march, we do see a step and a trail leading forward. Part of that is reimagined and thought of when we listen to, in a few minutes, to Avery Denny. And in that prayer, a prayer that is as old as the sun is, allows us the guidance today in 2020 during a pandemic, when we have to not meet face to face, we have to go through Zoom. And yet those words, those prayers, those words of wisdom guide us today and gives us purpose. And I think that's what Diné College is really about, as the first tribal college. So even though you may be sitting in a home far, far away from here, you're touching the red earth that you saw earlier. You're touching the sandstone, and you're being a part of this environment. Because Diné College is not just a place. Diné College is an idea. And that idea is also articulated in the vision and the mission of this workshop and this conference going forward. And so I think it doesn't matter where you are, where you come from. And that's why I said it's so important about our stories, our voice, but also our heart. And those of you that are a part of this, your voice may be quiet, but your heart is strong. And I appreciate you being a part of this. Thank you for the opportunity to welcome you to Diné College. And I want to first go back to what I probably should have done earlier. My name is Monty Russell. I'm the president of Diné College. Ke Ani Nishle, Monteith Clan of Scotland, Bushes Chin, Ashihi Shache, Otto German Chanella. And I'm from Round Rock, which is about 25 miles from here north. And I grew up here. My dad was the first president of this college and helped start it. And now 50 something years later, I'm here. And so I'm proud to be a part of this college, and I'm proud of the ideas that we incorporate here. So with that, thank you and welcome again to Diné College.
Thank you very much, Dr. Russell. I want to now introduce Dean James Tutt, the Dean of the School of STEM at Diné College. He is the past president of Navajo Technical College, now Navajo Technical University, and previous to that was an administrator at Dene College's Shiprock campus from 1975 to 1988. Dean Tutt, who is from Red Valley, just over the mountain, Arizona, is a graduate of Fort Lewis College in Durango, Colorado, and Western New Mexico University. At Dene College since August 2018, Dean Tutt has organized for the construction of a $12 million laboratory research facility to help bring the School of STEM into the university structure. Dean Tutt is responsible for many academic initiatives, including a seamless transfer program with Navajo Technical University and San Juan College, New Mexico. I also like to point out that Dean Tutt was part of the original organizers for the 1994 Tribal Land Grant Program and also the American Indian Science and Engineering Society, or ACES. Welcome, Dean Tutt.
Thank you for the introduction, Dr. Robinson. It gives me a great pleasure to welcome you to Dene College. It's the forefront of the Indian educations for the past 50 years. So it's very exciting to see all of you to come together, to over 100 people that I see that are registered to CoInFEWS. As Dr. Russell spoke about, the institutions, we're very proud of our school. It is the forefront of what our forefathers have foreseen when the college got started, the first tribal college in the nation. And that was the very first part of the first 10 years of the college. I was at the college and begin to plan and beginning to dream. And it's over 50 years since then. And we're still continue to dream, we continue still to see development within our country. And it's great to see all of you to be participant in this workshop that you're getting underway today. This will help the Indian people, indigenous people, to pursue some of the resources that need to be developed on our reservations. Our reservation is quite large, and there's a lot of needs out there, and there's a lot of our people, young people, need to be educated to manage our resources in years to come. I think that's what I'm looking at it. We need to dream. We still need to dream again, still continue to develop our development of our own people as well. So I'd like to welcome all of you to the great land of Dene people here. And I wish you well and have a great workshop. And I know you will learn a lot from the two gentlemen that's going to be talking with you, Mr. Urban Denny. And I also like to welcome some of the Native people that are attending the workshop. I see Carletta there. Good to see you. And we'll be looking forward to working with you. Thank you very much.
Many thanks to Dene College hosting our workshop. We hope to be able to visit you at a future workshop in person. Next, I'd like to introduce Perry Charlie, who will introduce Avery Denny, who will provide an opening blessing. Perry?
Thank you, team, and thank you, Dr. Robinson. Ado shehe yat thank you. Good morning, yat bene, to Dr. Russell, to my brother Jim Tutt, and certainly to the COVID team. and Shehe Avery for your participation here. For the past 20 years, as an employee of the Nate College in the capacity of a scientist, I've gotten to know and respect Avery as a colleague, as a friend of mine, and certainly as a colleague, a faculty of the Nate College. He is with the Center of the Nate Studies, who teaches our students as a faculty member. So he's an instructor for about 30 years. He teaches herbology, holistic healing, the Nate culture, the Nate history, and certainly the Nate philosophy. I've known Avery as my work as a scientist. I have to interact with the Nehatati Association. This is an association that has acquired and are recognized in the same status as medical physicians, but mainly in our society. He's a member of the Dene Medicine Men's Association. So in that, he's what we call a singer, a chanter, a tati of the Blessing Way ceremonies. Within the Blessing Way ceremonies, there are other intricate ceremonies that have to be learned as part of this overall beauty way chants. He's proficient in the protection way, the night way, and the enemy way ceremonies, among others. So he's very busy in addition to being a faculty member. He's a very strong advocate and devotes much of his professional and private life to retaining and teaching the Nebazab, the Navajo language. He's very articulate and offers much strength in teaching about the origins of leadership. Not only at least the ways of Navajo leadership for the Dene, our students, and the power of sacredness and retaining our Dene language. This is how I know my friend, my colleague. He's going to be doing a ceremony now. This is very critical in Native American society, especially the Dene society, where we will be engaging in knowledge and learning, exchanging of ideas and interfacing one another through internet here. And we are going to be discussing both negative and positive things. The Navajo Nation, as we all know and has been expressed, is deeply affected by the coronavirus. And we've seen a lot of impacts. And in order, before we start talking about we look at the negatives where it disrupted the balance and the harmony. We have to establish a procedures. And one of them is the chants and the protection way ceremony that my brother here is gonna offer to open this session. He will bless us, the instructors, the students, and everybody else who is in attendance in this week's session. So without further ado, Ashehe Avery for allowing me to be a part of your circle. Although I appreciate this time. Let's give him the floor right now. Thank you.
Good morning. I've been. First, I'd like to introduce myself. 제가 토독고지 인연신 아도 토sob이 이것이 탑네스라는 에더시 아도 찬지키는 에더시 나도. I'm originally from Hopewell, Arizona, which is west of Chinling, about 1 hour drive. But I work here at the college for at least about 30 years now. And Today, I want to do a blessing for learning, research, education, and working, dealing with elements. And give that Navajo spiritual perspective. And a lot of the things that we research, the things that we study, some of them are very culturally sensitive on the Navajo reservation here. And but we have to look into it, why things happen, as far as water, food, energy, and then the society, the people. And we as Navajos, there is a fine line that we always go back to is when we make contact at Fort Sumner, and when we signed that treaty of 1868, before that, we are considered savages, but we lived in this world, on this land, for thousands of years. We had no serious health issues or health problems. And after we signed that contract to be civilized, our whole life changed. And from that time on, 100 years passed. And by that time, our traditional leaders, they realized that something is happening in our society. And researches were done. There's an epidemic, health problem, social problem, and educational problem, loss of the native languages. So looking at that and realizing that's what happened in our Navajo nation, that there had to be an institution built. And this institution was built based on that. The preservation of our culture, language, to research it, to perpetuate it, to enhance that, and share this knowledge, the traditional knowledge with our young people, and preserve the language, the Navajo mind, the Navajo perspective. And we have a philosophy at this institution, which is on this banner here, that's behind me. And it starts with the earth, the water, the air, and the light. And through that, this tree of life called the corn philosophy, the corn stalk philosophy. So when you do this from a perspective of traditional, ancient knowledge, we come back to these four: earth, water, air, and the light. And those are the natural law, the traditional laws, customary laws, and common laws. And in there's human laws, ceremonial laws. And focus on that. So is that wellness. How do you hear yourself? How do you eat right how do you drink water plenty enough for your body to utilize, to breathe the clean air and the warmth and the light in this world. So there is a wellness called just to live that path of and you mentioned there's that pedagogy that goes clockwise: sunlight, day, noon, evening, nighttime, spring, summer, fall, and winter time. So that natural order, the natural cosmic order of life. And then there's the other one that goes, they call it the evil pedagogy, where beings live that could hurt us. Those are negative energy. The dark world, they say. Hardship, problem, and different beings that live in that world. And sometimes they come together, and that's where we suffer, and we have to go on. So to study that, you have to be protected, sort of, to have a protective shield to go in there to study it and learn about it. And because the taboo of similarity, the taboo of attraction, the taboo of contagion, that bridge of law is very, very important to understand in our life. And we have to protect ourselves. We have to shield ourselves. And in our practice, Navajos don't eat certain things. And today in our society, we are civilized. Sometimes we eat raw meat. In the traditional Navajo, traditional eating food is you have to cook your meat really well done. And don't eat rotten, spoiled things. That's the ancient teaching. The food that comes from nature. So our native food, corn, and certain animals is all right to consume. They give us life, and we were able to eat that, prepared in a special way. So those are the traditional food, native food, native plant food. In that category, there are about 5 different plants that we live with in our environment, and we have to respect it. Some are poisonous, some nature takes care of, animal consumption, poisonous plants, and of course, our herbal, medicinal medicine. Navajo herbalists are the ones that know how to mix it together, like a chemist would mix it together to make that right prescription for a person to consume. So we still have some of those in the rural area, but they are very protected by the immediate family. and only certain people have access to this information. So we have a health problem, a health issue about food sovereignty. We have our own food supply at one time, but now today we don't have that anymore. I try to plant my corn down where I live, a small little garden. I take care of my livestock, try to live off the land as much as I can, but still I have to run to the store and buy bread or something like that. And but healthy living, water issue too. Water, like today we consume bottled water, but waters come off the mountains too. Also, that natural artesian water that comes from the land. So, what is water? Where is water? Which water is safe to drink? How much do you drink? All of that. So I guess that's what you want to all understand. So one of the other things that is taboo is similarity. Is very culturally sensitive about is going to a gravesite, burial sites, and don't go over there, they say. Stay away from that. It's not good for you. You're going to expose yourself to it. It's going to hurt you. Don't bother it. Leave it alone. So it's very contagious. It's like a virus. It's unseen. It can hurt you. It can hurt your mind. You fall into depression. And all of these things about grief are very common today in our society today. Like we see burials going on, like people parading down to the cemetery. All these cars lined up to go to bury a person. And our elders would say, what the heck is happening? What's going on? Like showing off. That's not the way to do it. It causes health problems. It causes your immune system to fall down, to your guard is going to come down. Something is going to affect you. So these are laws of taboo, the bridging of taboo, the law of similarity, the law of contagion. Something you can see, something that you cannot see. It's transmitted between two human beings. And that's how the law of contagion. Something that looks like very attractive. You can go over there and get yourself hurt in there. Those things like that. So in this college philosophy, Nechake is thinking your mental health. You have to use it properly, make it right, think about it. What is wrong, what is right. And then the part of it, you plan, there's a strategy. You have to work, make a blueprint, stages of your research. Over here, the third component is the life way. And you live it, you're going to go by that. It's not just a paper that you're going to be presenting. What you learn is what you're going to live by. You're going to make it a part of your life. You believe it. And then the fourth component, assurance. That spirituality part of your life has to be a part of it. I know science does not give room for spirituality. Modern science, yes, but native science, they allow. You have to think about it. You have to make room for that. In order for a native person, some of them are very, maybe taboo, like dissecting some of these animals. You cannot do that as a native. So those are some of the things that are covered by that spiritual knowledge. You have to understand it. In some places, you have to learn to work with spirituality, psychology, sociology, science, earth science, animal science, human nature science, and then of course, like world, universe. There's that native science about anything. Technology is good to use, and just like the way I'm doing now. So share that much with you today. I'm sitting inside the Hokan at the college. The culture center is over here on the south side, outside. This is the modern Hokan, and we're in here with my other, I call him Chick. Dr. Matt Lerma sitting over here. He's taking care of the fire. And he put charcoal down right here. I got my tools here. These things are used as research tools that we look into this and try to provide guidance. And we have the ability to diagnose certain things in our life. We still have that. And that's our way of research, a way of knowing, a way of finding out, and the symptoms or diagnose, and then what is going to be the proper approach to application of healing, and what needs to be done, what type of prescription medicine will be provided from nature. Where do you find it to cure certain things, mental disorder, health problem, cancer, diabetes, and all of these things? So it has to have a mixture with water, with herbal plants, with the blessing, prayer, and then the way it is administered with a psalm. They call that ceremonial approach, ceremonial application. But we, as Navajos, these things are very, very delicate, and just only a few Navajos still understand this. But out of, let's say, 10 Navajos, at least about 3 persons will have that knowledge of traditional way of thinking and belief. The Navajo belief is not a person, is not a walking human being. The native practice is we believe in the natural order. The sun is the greatest energy in the whole universe. It does not go away and go to sleep or go on vacation and make promise that I'll be back tomorrow. It's going to be there all the time, day and night. We understand that the natural universe, the sun, takes care of everything. And that's our understanding, and that's how we used to live. And only 3 out of 10 persons will understand. The other ones are highly educated. They have their own idea, have their own practice, some other belief, they have that. So these are very rare. So at this institution, we're trying to provide school education just for a young person to experience, to look into this ancient knowledge, traditional knowledge, and this stories that carry on. That's going to be, the same story is going to be like 100 years from now, 1,000 years from now. The same origin story is going to be spoken of. And we intend to survive too. We're not going to be dominated. We're not going to be assimilated to this mainstream. We're trying to hold onto our ancient knowledge too with our language. And that's the perspective that we have today. So, and here today, in this prayer that I'm going to do is going to be most likely a protection prayer for what you're going to go into in your study. What is the goal? What is the outcome of your research? And this workshop that you're going to provide for all your students. And all the way from California, different states, Arizona, Colorado, wherever you are. So this institution will provide that protection for all of them. And this pandemic that we are experiencing today, it comes from another country. And of course, everybody will be affected by it. So it's really close to our homeland here. And we pray that it go away very soon. So, and we always hope that there will be a cure, maybe native science and mainstream science can come together and provide an answer for this pandemic that we have today. So, and I will say, like, I wish I'm immune to that. I pray that I will not be affected by it. By all means, I will be protected by that knowledge that I have. So I'm going to say that much, and then I'm going to do my little prayer for all of you, the blessing that I have here. And first of all, I'm going to burn some cedar here, put it in the fire, and let it burn like. It's going to be a prayer extended to all the students that are out there listening to and have a visual access to that. Thank you. So I'll be all done. Thank you very much. Thank you, Don. Have a good summer.
Thank you, Avery, for the
Thank you, Avery.
wonderful spiritual opening and gave us deep contextual understandings and philosophy and the importance of food and water sovereignty for the Navajo nations. Thank you. So thank you. Kara, could you start the slides? This workshop has been co-sponsored by 3 CoInFEWS PIs and the head of the TCUP program at, or co-PI Navajo Nation. So we thought we would just briefly say who the other co-sponsors are of the program, starting, I believe, with Maya Trotz and Becky Zarger.
Hello, everyone. Kari, you can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. And it's not on full screen. Greetings, everyone, from South Florida in this COVID-19 time and this Black Lives Matter time. Strong Coast, which is a collaborative NRT with the University of the Virgin Islands and the University of South Florida. And we are a team of anthropologists, civil and environmental engineers, and marine scientists working to build collaborative partnerships with communities so that we all apply a systems thinking lens to the food, energy, water nexus, identify challenges, and co-create solutions that hopefully make our coastal environments more strong, more resilient, more healthy, more well, with more love, as we just heard. We are very interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary. And the slide I'm showing here is actually at one of our sites, which is in Belize. And this was from last summer. We were based in Placencia, but our students, we had a class and we sort of went all the way from in the reef and the coast, where we work with a group called Fragments of Hope that does coral restoration. And we went all the way up to the ridge to a partner there called Yashe. And my colleague, Dr. Zargar, is going to speak a little more about that, because that is our connection to Indigenous community as part of our NRT, where we not just work in Belize, but we also work with communities in Tampa. We work in the Virgin Islands and we work in Barbados. And so if, Dr. Zargar, if you can unmute yourself and just sort of speak more about our collaboration in Belize, the work with the Mayan population group there is something that is built on Dr. Zargar's work for over 20 years, following on from her PhD work, where she's now being able to bring us and to bring other students to Belize to start training in that area. Is she on?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much, Dr. Trotz, and it's an honor to be here. And I thank all of the speakers who have shared such great wisdom and energy with us today. So just to keep it brief, I thought I would speak to the collaboration that we've had with an organization that's called Yashe Conservation Trust, which is a nonprofit organization, Belizean founded and run. And they partner very closely with quite a few of the more than 30 Kekchi and Mopan Maya villages in the southern part of Belize, in the Toledo district of Belize. As Maya mentioned, I've been working there for quite some time. And one of the things that we are in conversation with Yashe about is to learn more about the ways Indigenous Maya farmers are blending their traditional land use practices, such as intercropping. You see here, there's a cacao tree in the slide here to the left, and with innovations around food, energy, and water. So our students were able to visit some of the farms that the Maya experts were demonstrating some of the techniques with regards to intercropping and biogas production, and also prepare a traditional meal and understand more about the sort of important cultural connections that Maya communities have with Maya land, which they're also have been engaged in struggles for autonomy, and have won some really recent landmark cases with regards to that. So that is a short summary of the kind of work that we've been doing in partnership with Yashe, and other community groups are going to be hopefully involved in things going forward as well. And we're sorry that Yashe wasn't able to join in on today's session. They're actually, all of their staff are involved in making food deliveries to Maya communities due to COVID-19 situation, but hopefully they'll be able to join us later in the week. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Maya and Becky. Could we go to the next slide? And I think we all need to maybe be cognizant of the time, and also I'll go through very quickly. I realized I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Alice Egogino. I'm in the faculty in mechanical engineering at UC Berkeley, and this is going to be talking about our innovations in food, energy, water systems, NRT traineeship program. So our goal is to integrate food, energy, water systems across space and time and make that research actionable. If we could go to the next slide. And the idea is we want to be doers with innovations in food, energy, water systems. Next slide. Our leadership team is very interdisciplinary, sometimes called transdisciplinary, because we combine engineering and sciences, economics, business with the social sciences. And as you can see from the backgrounds of our leadership team. Next slide. And our goals, our broader mission is interdisciplinary learning, problem solving for global impact. We work not only in the United States, but we work globally with interdisciplinary learning. We use human-centered design and co-design with local communities. And tomorrow morning on all of these projects, you'll hear more about best practices in the first session. This shows a sustainable home that we developed with the co-developed with the Pinole Pomo Nation. Angela James on the far right will be speaking tomorrow. Neil Perez, our coordinator here. Next slide. Just a distribution of our program. We have good gender balance. As you can see, we've got close to 75 traineeships so far, and we have close to 20% over 20% underrepresented minorities that are participating. Next slide. And next, Carletta Chief from University of Arizona will talk about her program.
Yeah, Arnold Toshe, Torchi Nichleto, Tohana Bashichin, Azatana Dashiche, Tachine Dashinala, Akota, and Southern Shleto, here, Dr. President Russell, and Dean Tut, Otto Shayaj, Avery Denny, Otto Da Perry, Charlie, Don Robinson. Thank you for your prayers and for hosting us virtually. I am an associate professor and extension specialist at University of Arizona, and I lead the Indigenous Food, Energy, Water Security, and Sovereignty training program at the University of Arizona. U of A is a land-grant university, and as a land-grant university, we have a mission to bring science to the communities to answer pressing challenges. U of A has a long mission, a long history working with tribal communities, and especially TCUs like Dana College and Navajo Technical University, primarily to train not only our students, but also to support tribal college students. I see present are some of our tribal college students. It's great to see you. So Indigenous Food, Energy, and Water Security and Sovereignty is working with Dana College in this partnership to develop a diverse workforce with intercultural awareness and expertise in food, energy, water systems. So with Dana College, our team at U of A and our graduate students, along with the tribal college students, have designed a solar-powered water filtration system shown here on the upper top left to provide clean water for Navajo families. With lack of access to food, energy, water on the Navajo Nation, we think it's critical to educate and train our students to tackle these pressing challenges. Also with many environmental challenges facing the Navajo Nation, like past legacy uranium mining that contributes to water quality, as well as lack of access to food, and then many people who don't have electricity or running water. So we want to enable our students to tackle these real world problems with the understanding of tribal culture and Indigenous communities. So it was great to have Avery Denny provide a blessing here. So our students are just not doing research for the purpose of research and to put it on a shelf, but really to do research that has a real impact, to solve real world problems that our community faces. And even more so today with COVID-19, as my uncle Avery Denny stated, that COVID-19 has amplified these insecurities to food, energy, water. And so I look forward to the next coming days in sharing our experiences, and work together with our Indigenous communities to co-design, and also for us to learn to do that in a better way. I want to acknowledge my team. Next slide. There are many of us who will be joining us who are part of this team. We represent engineering, science, and social science disciplines, bridging the various expertise to address food, energy, water security, as well as our partner lead at Diné College, Benita Litson. Next slide. Last year, we were at Diné College doing this training in person. We spent 5 days training Diné College students in food, energy, water systems. They also did hands-on applications with this off-grid nanofiltration unit. Then they, after a week of training, they presented that information to the community in the Navajo language and also received a certificate for the 1 week training. And so I look forward to discussing with you. Thank you for this time, and we will share more about our project in the next coming days. Ahihe.
Thank you, Carletta. Next is Don Robinson from Diné College, PI of the Teacup program.
Hello there, everybody. Several years ago, Carletta asked us at Diné College to help her with this FEWS program, Food, Energy, Water program. And Benita Litson and myself and several faculty have been helping her and her team coordinate with Diné College, with our School of STEM and our students. We have a group of students today on the workshop line sponsored by the Tribal College and University Program Grant, the Teacup grant that Diné College received several years ago to support STEM programming. And we've created a couple bachelor's degrees in biology, secondary education, and also associates in pre-engineering and certificates in GIS and computer tech. And through these and other STEM programs, we are expanding the college to to provide our students with every possible learning opportunity and research opportunity all the way up to the university and hopefully soon PhD level. So Carletta has and her team has given us wonderful opportunities to expand our programming for the engineering and food, energy, and water technologies, along with Benita Litson in the land grant area. So it's just a wonderful opportunity, and we're here today with you, and we'll continue to help everybody get this food, energy, water technology researched and taught and perpetuated and improved ongoing. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Next slide. So now we're going to take a break. This session is like all of the sessions. The first session will be 2 hours. The second session will be 90 minutes. We'll have a short break in the middle of both, and then an hour in between, so people can take, you know, an early lunch or a late lunch, depending on where you're at. But I'm very pleased to introduce Dr. Vinod Lohani. He's from the National Science Foundation. He's program director of the Research Traineeship Program, the NRT program, Innovations in Graduate Education, and the Career Program. Prior to joining NSF, he was at Virginia Tech, and I think he's still there, he's just taking a leave, where he found a number of innovative research educational programs. By the way, we've got an extensive bio of all of our speakers, so feel free if you want to read more detail about the incredible speakers that we have in this program, please look at the bios to see that. Vinod, is there anything you want to say about yourself?
No, I think that's good enough, Alice. Thank you so much for your kind words. As soon as the slides are up, I'm ready to go. Good afternoon from the East Coast. I am at the foundation, National Science Foundation, just like most of us are working remotely. So I'm actually on Virginia Tech campus right now in Blacksburg. and we have access to all the database and everything. So that's what I'm speaking to you. So let's see, once I have my slide, there we go. So once again, thank you so much for your kind invitation to this virtual workshop. Very exciting. I had an opportunity to briefly listen to all the three NRT programs, the fabulous work they're doing. I really want to congratulate all the teams, starting with the University of California at Berkeley's team with their partnership with the Pinnacle Pomo Nation under the leadership of Dr. Alice Agogino. Then the team from University of Arizona in partnership with the Diné College and the Navajo Nation under the leadership of Dr. Carletta Chief. And last but not the least, big congratulations to the team from University of South Florida and University of Virgin Island under the leadership of Dr. Maya Torts and Becky Zarger-Quees. So what I'm going to do in next about 10, 15 minutes, talk about the NRT program, the program that we have been running for almost 7 years now. And although you will get a lot of details about these three fabulous NRT programs during this excellent workshop that you will have for next few days, but I'll talk in general terms about the NRT program, and we have done some networking analysis about how different investigators have come together to propose creative ideas under the NRT program, so I'll describe those to you. So next slide, please. To start with, I'd like to briefly describe to you the structure of the foundation, National Science Foundation, particularly the research directorates. So we have 7 research directorates, as you can see here, starting with biological sciences, we call bio, then computer and information science and engineering, which is called SCIENCE. So acronyms are really popular in SF, as you probably know. And then the Directorate for Education and Human Resources, in short EHR, and I am part of that directorate. Under this directorate, there are 4 divisions, and my division, which is the Division of Graduate Education, is part of EHR. Then we have Engineering Directorate, ENG. Then we have Geosciences Directorate. Then we have Mathematical and Physical Sciences Directorate, MPS. And then we have the last one, Social, Behavioral, and Economic Sciences, what we call SBE. The reason I talked about this is NRT is a NSF-wide program, and we have representative, we have program officers from each directorate. They work with us, or I should say we work with them to really go after the funding programs, the review process, and everything. So, and I will refer to these directorates later when I show you some network analysis of our past NRT awards. So, thank you. This is the NRT program, again, National Science Foundation Research Traineeship Program. We have 2 solicitations. One is the regular NRT program, like the 3 programs which are being discussed in this particular workshop. And then we have another solicitation, and I'll briefly talk about that as well, what is called Innovations in Graduate Education, in short IGE. So first I'll start with the NRT program. Next slide, please. So in this program, our goals are really to create innovative models of interdisciplinary, convergent STEM graduate training, where we want to really invite, challenge the PIs or their teams to create creative graduate program, which can eventually lead to some changes in their institutions and will ultimately lead to preparation of the workforce in interdisciplinary research or interdisciplinary work. And typically, these are dictated by problems, societal problems, like the ones we are talking about in this particular workshop, like the InFEWS challenge with indigenous communities, for example. What a fabulous problem where disciplinary experts from multiple disciplines come together to come up with creative solutions to these challenges. This is the current solicitation we have, and we are in the process of slightly revising it. In fact, currently we are negotiating awards for this year's awardees. And typically we would give $3 million over a 5-year project for the NRT award. Next slide, please. So these projects are typically motivated by our NSF strategic plan. And also we have 10 big ideas within National Science Foundation. And national reports on graduate education, for example, the one you're seeing here from National Science Academy, Engineering and Medicine, the graduate STEM education for 21st century, and the need to develop inclusive workforce, as also for training our future professionals, not just for academia, but also for diverse career paths. So those are some motivating factors of NRT program. Next slide, please. So here is a typical architecture of a successful NRT project. We have research, conversion, interdisciplinary conversion research, typically dictated by some societal problems. And then we have training for traineeship for graduate students, which is fairly interdisciplinary and sort of preparing them for the future professions, not only just, like I said before, academics, but also for a variety of other careers. We would hope that these kind of innovative programs will ultimately be adapted or adopted by other graduate programs in the same institutions or collaborative institutions or other universities to bring about institutional changes of doing graduate education and in turn also preparing the workforce. Next slide, please. So what you're seeing in this slide is in last, so the NRT program, the way we know it now, began in fiscal year 14. And at this point we have, in last 6 competition, we have awarded 85 grants, 91 awards, including collaborative projects in 36 states and 1 territory. And about 25% awards are in F-scored states. 9% awardees come from minority serving institutions, and 21% of awards are in non-R1 institutions. We have 34% of PIs are females, and about 9% come from underrepresented minorities. And this does not include, this is last 6 years, and we are currently sort of finalizing the 7th year of competition as we speak. Next, please. So here is just a quick review of the different types of professional development skills which are being addressed in various NRT awards over the last 6 years or so. So as you can see, a lot of emphasis on science communication, mentoring work, career preparation in terms of different types of creative internships, exposure to research ethics, for example, community engagement, the wonderful work that your 3 NRTs are doing, leadership training, collaboration and team building. Some of them also get into entrepreneurship and some aspects of work-life balance and regulatory affairs. So these are different types of professional trainings we have observed in the programs which are going on at various institutions at this time. Next, please. So what I'm showing you here is we did a sort of network analysis. So since these are interdisciplinary projects, and earlier I introduced you to various directorates at the National Science Foundation. So what you're seeing is those dots are the awards, and the linkages to different directorates shows that the participating faculty and the departments these PIs are recruiting students from, the links are showing that linkages to those particular directorate. For example, if a particular dot, which represents one of the awards, so these are 85 different dots here, and if it is linked to size, that means they have either faculty participants who are coming from computer science, information science, those kind of disciplines, or they are planning to recruit students from those departments at their institution. So you can see a variety of interdisciplinary going on as they are addressing different types of problems that is requiring convergent solutions.
Could you say what some of those acronyms are? Not everybody speaks NSFEs.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Alice. And please stop me anytime. So again, SCIENCE is computer science, computers, information science, and engineering. ENG is engineering directorate. MPS, mathematical and physical sciences. Geo, geological sciences. Bio, biological sciences. And SPE, social, behavioral, and economic sciences. So these are the directorates, and EHR is the directorate that really runs this particular program, Education and Human Resources. That is the directorate in which I'm a program officer. Thank you, Alice. Next, please. Then we also looked at our CoInFEWS Award, Innovation Nexus of Food, Energy, and Water Systems Awards. And in last 6 years, we have given 17 projects, NRT projects, which have a focus of CoInFEWS spread across 15 states, including Arizona, California, and Florida. And about 29% of them are in the F-score awards. And if we go to next slide, this shows again just the networking of CoInFEWS awards, those 17 awards, similar type of analysis. So as you can probably see on the leftmost side, I have computer information science engineering, that is SCIENCE directorate. And there are 1, 2, 3, and 4 CoInFEWS project who either have computer science faculty or they are recruiting students from computer science for getting them engaged in CoInFEWS type of research. As you can probably see here, the engineering directorate, the geo directorate, the bio directorate seem to be having the maximum number of linkages. That means out of those 17 projects, majority of them have drawn faculty members or investigators with backgrounds in engineering or geosciences or biology, or they are recruiting students from these departments at their respective institutions for training them for CoInFEWS research. Next, please. So we carry out activities over the year for building the community. On the left side, these are the regular events that we organize. NRT annual meeting, we are currently talking about finalizing the date. Most likely it will be a virtual meeting. It used to be in-person meetings, but as we know, because of the COVID issues, so we are still working on the dates, and you will get to know. Then we do new PI orientation. Anytime new awards are made, we do orientation for them. And we also did this year the Innovations in Graduate Education PI meeting, and I'll briefly talk about that, about the program in a minute. And then we have exemplary special events, like the one you folks have organized, the CoInFEWS virtual workshops, again, with a goal to build community. I really appreciate that you have invited all the CoInFEWS. I hope students, faculty from other programs outside your 3 NRTs are also participating. And this is a great way to build a community, and whichever way we can assist or help, please do let us know. Next, please. So a couple more slides. This is the second NRT program, what we call Innovations in Graduate Education, in short IGE program. And what we are looking for here is, we are looking for pilots or experiments you want to do in your graduate program with a target of improving that graduate program and generating knowledge for evidence-based best practices. So it will be a sort of research in graduate education. So it's a pilot program. You have some idea that you want to introduce into your existing graduate program, and you want to collect data, how students are reacting to that. So complete full-blown research type program. This is the kind of proposal we accept in the Innovations in Graduate Education program. And currently we are revising the solicitation. And in this program, we would award about $500,000 project over a period of 3 years. Here is an example of a project from University of Rhode Island, for example. What they're trying to do is they want to make the graduate students bilingual, in the sense they need to know the language of science, but they also need to know the language of lay people. So how do you communicate science to lay people? So they have proposed interventions right from the beginning as graduate students enter the program, and they have all kinds of strategies to improve their communication skills on both sides, communicating the science aspect and communicating the science to lay people, and then collecting data, and then publishing their data, sharing their best practices with others. So that's an example of IGE program. Next, please. So that's the portfolio, and this data needs to be updated. So beginning 2015, we started awarding, and we have in 2019, I awarded about 9 projects. So at this point, we have 52 projects across multiple states and multiple EBSCO regions, and for the IGE portfolio. Next, please. So this is the last slide. And here, I just want to remind that we will continue to, we are 3 program officers in the program now. We are a complete team, and we are very excited about bringing some new things to the NRT program. We are in the process of making some changes, but the solicitation will be published in fall. IGE, we are making some minor tweaks in that program as well, but we do plan to publish IGE solicitation as well in the fall. And I also happen to represent my division for NSF-wide career program. And this year we have decided to add 2 programs which will accept career proposal within the division of graduate education. One is IGE program. That means if there are young assistant professors who want to do STEM education research, particularly in graduate education, and build their career proposals along that, our IGE program will be more than happy to get that proposal reviewed. And then we also have a cybersecurity education program, and this particular link has all the description, and that is also being included in the career program beginning this year. And if there are any questions related to that, I'll be happy to answer. So once again, I want to thank you, all the organizers, the teams, and the PIs and their teams of 3 NRTs, and our colleagues from various indigenous communities. I really appreciate what is being done in this particular workshop. And I want to thank you very much for your attention, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vinod. That's a great overview and of the various programs. So we have a few minutes. Cara, if you could transition to the slides, we'll do Q&A. Now imagine that I'm in front of 300 people and I have to decide who to call upon to ask Vinod a question. So I'm asking is that you put your question in the chat box and I will call on you if this works out. So if you wouldn't mind doing that, I will start out though with the first question. And that question is, I notice in your chart of people that have all of these grants, Colorado and New Mexico don't have any. So are there any people out there from Colorado and New Mexico, like those Huskies out there that I've been reading in the chat? Do you have any questions about what you need to do to submit a proposal? Because you do like to get geographic.
Yes, we do, yes. Anything I can help answer, and we do workshops, by the way, and we will do webinars in the fall to address all questions in terms of how do you put together the proposal and anything and everything. But feel free to reach out to us, and my email is part of the slides. And I'll be happy to talk to anybody about if they have any issues in terms of preparing their proposals.
Thank you. And Cara has put the various programs in the chat box. Are there any questions people have before we move on? Well, we'll have another Q&A at the end of this session, so you'll have an opportunity to ask questions later on in the session as well. So what I'm going to do next is talk about the workshop goals and processes and what we're going to do next and kind of the logic behind what we're doing in how we set up the program. So the goals overall are to develop networks, and networks that are transdisciplinary and across various communities that involve researchers, involve all working on food, energy, water systems challenges in tribal nations, including community members, environmental professionals, researchers, educators, and students. We're going to start out with identifying the challenges and opportunities, and then identify best practices of those that have worked with and within Indigenous communities, identify funding opportunities, and then create solutions and make those solutions operational and submit proposals for future funding. Next slide. So who's going to do all this work? Well, that's you, the audience, the participants that are out there, all 250 of you, although I understand a whole bunch have logged in this morning and it's closer to 300. Here's a little bit about the population of the audience right now. We have 27 different tribes involved with the tribal affiliation, and you see the names of some of them over there. We had at the time last night when this was put out 250 registrants. Not everybody identified who they were, so we don't know where they're from. Next slide, please. So here's a little bit about who's represented here in terms of the largest group are students that are participating. So thank you, all the students out there. The next largest group are the faculty, and then the tribal community representation. And then there are various smaller groups that are represented, for instance, government employees, postdocs, nonprofit organizations, and tribal government employees as well. Next slide. You missed a slide. Yes, thank you. Okay, and these are some of the organizations that are involved. So we've got a number of universities, as you can see here, and the tiny print you could read some of the research institutes like the Desert Research Institute. So wide distribution across the nation that are engaged in this, and different organizational types and different community members. So thank you all for joining us. So now we can go to the next slide and talk about how we've structured the program. So the first part of the workshop is to look at context, a deep understanding of context, the challenges and best practices of what has been going on. So after an hour break, we'll start a session on COVID-19 because that's the elephant in the room. That has disrupted everyone. How can we learn from it? How can we build in resiliency to future pandemics? And so we have a very sterling panel of people that have worked on and are looking at challenges on the Navajo Nation about the intersection between COVID-19 and food, energy, water systems. The first session on Tuesday then will focus in on examples of indigenous food, energy, water systems, past practices and innovation. We'll start with talking with some of the NRT programs and going into more depth. And then the second session on Tuesday will focus on DNA traditional FEWS frameworks. On Wednesday, we'll start on FEWS systems on the Navajo Nation, and then generalize it for the second session on Wednesday to decolonizing FEWS innovation and looking across different disciplines, science, technology, engineering, art, and math. If we go to the next one. Next slide. And so you saw the largest group were students. So we want to have an opportunity for students to network. So Wednesday, depending on your time zone, we're providing opportunity for undergraduate students and graduate students to be able to network together and also prepare for the session that they will take leadership on Thursday morning. So we have moderators, note takers, and interns all working to help with the Thursday morning session. If we can go to the next slide. And the Thursday morning session will be very interactive. We're doing the best we can to make that possible with a large group and using the Zoom features. We'll start out talking about summarizing the challenges, but then the whole goal of this session is to move on to best practice solutions and implementation. We have 8 known breakout groups we had by a process of forming what the center of gravity was on issues that people wanted to talk about. One on sustainable food, energy, water systems, another looking at multi-general aspects across generations, digital transformations in both access and in developing and using that data, FEWS sovereignty and environmental justice, language and cultural brokers, health and well-being, forget the 2 minutes there, that's a mistake, resiliency to COVID-19 and other pandemics, and then STEAM education, science, technology, art, and mathematics. And Yale's just going to run a birds of a feather session for anything else that you're interested in. We'll start the session, Yale Perez will coordinate it, she'll give some background, and throughout this week, we'll tell you how you can sign up for which breakout session you want to have. Next slide, please. We also are trying to do virtual workshops. These are some of the places we hope to send you to or be able to see if we had an in-person workshop. And so we're going to be focusing on K through 12 Indigenous students. And we'll start out with the Mark Sorensen and then go on to the Pinole-Villa Pomo Nation. Next slide, please. And the final session and only session we have is on Wednesday. We will have representatives from the funding agencies who will help us. Well, first summarize.
I wanted to say Friday, Alice.
What did I say? Oh, anyway,
Wednesday.
So Friday, last session is on Friday, and it's our final session as well. And in that session, we will have representatives from funding agencies that will listen to a summary of the breakout sessions on Thursday. They will introduce themselves and some of the programs that these breakout session groups might want to go to for additional funding. We'll end this session with networking opportunities and the next steps. We plan to have short workshops throughout the summer for those breakout sessions and to move all of this forward. Next slide. So mostly I just wanted to see if people had any questions about the logistics, want to ask any of the speakers today questions that are still on. And what I ask you to do is put it in the chat, demute, when we call on you, and we can ask the questions. Cara or anyone else, do you want to say anything more about logistics that I left out?
Yes, may I please say one thing? During the final 5 to 10 minutes of every session, we are going to launch a Zoom poll, and it's to get some immediate feedback as to the session you're currently attending. We want to know, how well it relates to your work, and we have a couple things. So it should take you less than 30 seconds. The poll will pop up in Zoom, and you'll just take it in Zoom, and that will really, really help us throughout this. And then we do have a question from Jana, and maybe I'll give her a minute to unmute herself and ask, otherwise I'll read it out from the chat. And then Lupita also has a question after Jana.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Jana, and I was just wondering what kind of opportunities you had for training scientists how to communicate to the public.
Who are you addressing the question to?
That was speaking last.
Vinod?
Yeah, I think maybe that's what. So I think I was referring to an award, IGE award, and I would what they have done. They have really a group of faculty members, including some faculty with background in English. They have developed different kinds of writing assignments, and they engage these students into these writing assignments for over a period of 2 years. They do peer feedback and all that based on what I was able to find out from that. But my suggestion would be, my email should be accessible to you. Please send me an email. I will be happy to put you in touch with them. And if they have any publications, I'm sure they'll be happy to share with you. This is University of Rhode Island. They have an IGE project, Innovations in Graduate Education.
Thank you. And just as a reminder, if you're not speaking, please put your system on mute. I'd like to open that same question up. I think it's an excellent question to the PIs on the NRT programs, because communication was an important part of their program. And Maya, do you want to share something about how you integrate communication for scientists and engineers?
Sure. So I just posted a link to Jana, and that's something that our students identified as they would like to do more on science communication and policy. And so our previous program coordinator, research specialist, Dr. Christine Prouty, worked a lot to put together training programs for them and bringing folks in. I remember she organized a group from Arizona State and hosting a workshop with them. And then the university itself, different departments would be hosting workshops that our students were able to attend. So I put a link there, Jana, for UNAVCO, and they hosted a really good, it was probably half-a-day workshop that we attended. And as this becomes more important at the universities, you'll be able to share some of those resources and attend some of those workshops locally.
Great. And Carletta, I know you have quite a communication program where some of your students teach other students.
At the University of Arizona IndigiFuse training program, what we do is we try to train our students to teach at a tribal college. So the audience is very different in the terms of the students are coming from a very strong culturally based community with a lot of fused challenges. And so we work with the students to decolonize the science and be able to translate that science. And we work closely with Don Robinson, Benita Litson, and Perry Charlie in ensuring, and Valerie Shirley, to ensure that we're meeting those goals, because the teaching is very different from a typical, Research One university.
And I can say at the traineeship program we have at University of California at Berkeley, communication is very important as well. We talk about our research as being actionable and how we communicate to different audiences in different ways to have action and to have people listen and take action on the message that's being done. We have a question from Lupita Montoya. Could you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hi, everybody. And so my question has to do with the focus regarding, the people that we're training, because you mentioned that you don't have a proposal from the University of Colorado. I have been working at the University of Colorado for over 10 years. In 8 of those, I have worked directly with the Navajo Nation, graduated a PhD student with a project on indoor air quality. And I was denied tenure because the work that I did at the Navajo Nation, as well as other research that I did with communities of color, were deemed as service by my institution. And it has been it has posed incredible obstacles in my career because I'm at an institution that speaks a lot about diversity and support for diversity, and they do absolutely the opposite. And people do not know this. So I'm the first underrepresented minority woman in the College of Engineering, 126 years of the history. And I went through the tenure process for the first time with my excellent research, which my career external reviewers approved and validated. And the College of Engineering and the administrators above me discounted it. They discounted my external reviewers as well. So that you know, I'm dealing with this thing at the same time that I'm doing research on the ground with communities, publishing scientific journal papers, trying to apply for funding. Right now, I'm not even doing that anymore because I've been in this fight for so long. And NSF being there, you need to know that people of color, scholars of color who are end up in bad institutions, we are kept out of the loop because we can't get funding. And because we cannot get funding, we cannot continue our careers. And so that you know, I just filed a lawsuit against the University of Colorado after fighting with them for over 3 years over all the mistakes they made with my promotion. So you need to know these things because when you're talking about working with our communities, you need to know that our communities include our communities of color in academia, we're very few to start with. And when we have no support from places like NSF or NIH for our science, which oftentimes involve people of color in our communities, you are putting us in jeopardy because institutions like the University of Colorado will use that against us. So how are you gonna prevent this from happening? So the training of young students, which I do, I've trained Navajo kids from Diné College. You can ask Don Robinson, you can ask my colleagues, Carletta Chief. I've been doing this. When I had an REU program from NSF, I was not renewed because I wasn't producing research publishable with my Navajo kids that I brought in. I brought 2 each year, and most of my students were underrepresented minorities. So I was doing what I know is right, but NSF did not give me credit. And somehow you want everything to work out. So I do not know how you're gonna reconcile all of these, opposing interests. So I'm sorry that it takes long, but you need to know what's really happening with regards to science and engineering. I'm an engineer. And so my biggest hope is to be able to train more engineers because I went to school with Maya Trust. She ended up in a good university. I ended up in a horrible one. And that's the big difference between the two of us. So how are you gonna help people like me who end up in horrible places where people are literally trying to destroy our careers and we cannot help our communities, we cannot do innovative research, but you can look at my dossier, you can look at my publications. I'm doing it in spite of all of these obstacles, but I cannot get funding for my work. So there's gotta be something to be done. Something, and right now with all of these COVID and all of the, anti-racism demonstrations, you need to know that this is not just people being choked to death on the streets. Our careers are being choked to death by universities like the University of Colorado. So I'm sorry because I made it a long time, but this is my one chance to speak about this group because most of you are comfortably in your positions, but you do not know the plight of people like me. And you need to know.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you very much. And I'd be happy to talk to you more about this, but let's give a chance for some people to respond. One thing I wanted to say, I really like your comment about it makes a difference whether you're at a university that's going to nurture you and mentor you. And I think that is the biggest difference. And I think part of the NRTPIs have been working on training students to be able to do that. Vinod, do you want to say anything?
Definitely. Lupita, first of all, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and experiences. I'm so thankful to you. So in the NRT program, one of the review criteria we have is broadening participation. And if you were to look at any NRT proposal, we ask and I'm sure the folks who are the 3 PIs, they did this. We asked them to give us data, statistics about what is the constitution of your students, how many women, how many underrepresented students you are recruiting in various participating programs, which is going to be part of your NRT. So we want, first of all, them to realize if there is any problem, and then they have to address how this NRT is going to address that problem. So we are completely aware of the issues. And I also briefly hinted that we are making some changes as well. Maybe some of the changes will further reflect and emphasize this. So we are completely aware of the issues that you talk about, and we do our best on our end to make sure that NRT teams are coming up with creative models to improve the diversity of students and faculty alike. And again, feel free to please write to me. You have my email. I'll be happy to share with all of my administrators and things like that. So thank you so much for bringing up that issue.
Sarah El Said asks a question. Could you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yeah, it's a bit noisy here. Thanks for the opportunity. I was just curious to know if during this week we will be tackling topics of food sovereignty and traditional ecological knowledge, or is the whole framework going to be on using FEW? And it's a general comment, it's not directed to one person.
Yeah, I think food sovereignty and indigenous knowledge is throughout the entire session, but we have a few sessions that are on that. FEWS, the Food, Energy, Water Systems, is combining research in that area with indigenous knowledge and traditional use of food, energy, water systems. So hopefully it's an alert to all the future speakers that this is of interest to you, but I think it's integrated throughout the other sessions.
Thank you.
So any other burning questions before we move on to the break?
I wanted to respond to Lapita's question on broadening participation and some of the things that we do. And so for us, we have partnered with University of Virgin Islands, which is an HBCU. Mm-hmm. We've partnered with their marine sciences program, and marine sciences is not as diverse as, say, environmental engineering. And so their students are going to be starting pretty soon in the program, and we'll definitely look at the broadening participation there, because when you do look at they've been working on doing that within their program, even though they're in the Virgin Islands, the demographic may not look like what you'd think would come from the Virgin Islands. And here in Tampa, our program, the first cohort 8 were funded by NRT, and so of that 5 were URMs, and also I think 6 were women. So we need to balance up the men and women a little more. But importantly, I think, is we've partnered with communities of color in Tampa Bay, in Belize, Barbados, in the Virgin Islands. And I think, to me, I think that has a role to play in the way in which our URM students and all of our students get to engage with the research. I do notice with some of our students that engagement from an engineering perspective becomes a lot more broad, a lot more sort of deeper questions that one must ask in looking at injustices and looking at inequalities and so on that exist between, say, those communities that we're working in and, say, the university community. And so there's the research becomes more sort of this structural look at something, which I think the systems perspective helps with. And I think this is the interesting work that the NRT does when you're doing broader participation. We're talking about building up communities, talking about working with communities of color, and really, what does it mean to have serious structural changes to the way we do our work? I was looking at the numbers that you presented, Vinod, in terms of, I think it was 9% of 1 awardees. And so I already know half of them, you know, myself, Sinai, Carletta, on there. And I'm not sure if like DNA College, you know, maybe that PI may have been also, but it's so few of us. And I think what would be good too is to have that smaller group sort of start to discuss, you know, how do we move in this space? I do think what Lapita is speaking about in terms of where your students are going to go afterwards. Many of our students who are doing the community engaged work as engineers sometimes don't see themselves going into academia, even though I think academia is going to change drastically now with COVID-19 and Black Lives Matter.
Sure.
But every university president is posting about the importance of working with local communities. So I hope that's opportunities for our students to engage more in traditional disciplines that are now pivoting to say that this work is important.
Maya, thank you. I have a question for you. Part of the purpose of the workshop is the networking and also the pipelines between different educational groups. But the issue that was brought up by Lupita was, can you publish on this work? And I think you can. It is research. Could you say a little bit about how you've been able to publish your research?
Oh, and I think Lupita has been extremely successful in publishing her research. And so I do, yeah, I'm just so upset that Boulder just doesn't, I'm not sure what happened with her case, but they just didn't value that partnership and the approach to work that she has taken. I think it's finding the students and the appropriate journals and the faculty members who would be on board to support this. I do think I had senior mentorship who supported the work from the beginning and was able to open doors for that. I do think our partnership with anthropology has been extremely valuable. So that even expands sort of where you publish. And our students have been extremely successful with that partnership.
Okay,
USF is also an engaged university, and I'm not sure if Boulder was. Last time I checked, I don't think they were. And maybe that's a difference too. You know, I've been looking at AAU universities, which for many of us who are not AAU, that's always what you want to become.
Right.
And then looking at how many of them were actually classified as Carnegie community engaged, and not many of them are, and not many of the R1s are classified that way. USF was that when I first started. And so I think something here probably encourage a lot more of that community engaged work.
I just want to just make one last comment, because we're working on a publication right now with Maya about the direction that we think environmental engineers to go. And in my case, to me, I'm very clear. I'm an engineer and I publish in engineering journals. I don't do education engineering. Engineering education research. That's not my field. Nor do I want to do that. I want to be an engineer solving problems that affect people that need problem solving. And that has been my science and is published. But the problem is that even the administration does not want to accept it. So I think that if we were to stay within the scientific community, it's not a problem. It wasn't a problem. It was once we got to the administration, who has a very long history of anti people of color, even though they say the opposite in public. So I'm in the middle of this craziness. But what I want to emphasize for people who are more senior here, and especially those who have money, you need to be paying close attention to scholars of color who are at R1 institutions. That's what all I've been. I did my undergraduate at a Cal State system, and then I went to Stanford, and I stayed in R1s all the way until now, for decades. And I've been doing research, publishing, but as a person of color in an institution that usually doesn't have anybody like me, like I said, CU Boulder hasn't had a single Latina in the whole history of the college, 125 years. They do not know what to do with me, and the first thing they do is to deny me, because I do things differently. And so my sense is we're at a moment right now that people need to pay attention to this sort of thing, because if you want a pipeline that actually works, you need to have somebody in the front. And I've been pushing that pipeline for so many years that when I see that people not paying to this attention to this, we're gonna stop in the same place for another 125 years. So anyways, thank you, Maya, for pointing that out. You can look at my publications. This is not research in other fields. It is engineering research in the same field in journals that my colleagues, published. In fact, when they looked at my impact factor on the papers what I published, they're above the average for CU Boulder in my college. It's just me. I'm a brown person studying brown people, and I'm not allowed to do that. That it has a name in racism. It is brown on brown, the research taboo. You guys who are giving money, those who are in positions of power, need to know the literature about research and sociology that has to deal with oppressed peoples, even in academia, because these are real. We're experiencing this right now. And if you want to change the face of academia, the change of our of engineering, you need to pay attention to these problems. They're real. They're not made up.
Thank you. I totally agree. Dan Wildcat, though, says maybe we should rethink the pipeline metaphor. Dan, do you want to talk about your preferred metaphors?
Yes. I would prefer we talk about pathways. This pipeline metaphor, in light of so much of what's going on in indigenous homelands, where often our peoples are, trying to stop pipelines from crossing their ancestral homelands. And because of safety concerns, environmental safety concerns, I think, pipelines is a good metaphor for resources. People like to put resources in pipelines, but let's shift the discussion to a discussion about relatives. And relatives we should put on pathways. So just a suggestion. I think the language matters. And I think for a lot of young indigenous people right now, to talk about putting them in a pipeline is not going to be something that's going to be very attractive to them. Let's talk about building a pathway that we can help lead them on. So thank you.
Okay, I agree. I think some engineer must have coined that expression, that metaphor for diversity. Vinod, any parting comments you'd like to make before we break?
I really want to, encourage you, Alice, Maya, and Carleta, and others as well. If you want to think about a workshop along the direction of the discussion we had that Lupita initiated, I think we would consider that, some kind of workshop to that effect, particularly to improve diversity in NRT program or something like that. So we will be very supportive. And all I want to say is I really enjoyed the discussion, and I wish all the organizers all the best. You have a fabulous agenda for remaining 3-4 days you have here. And on Friday, my colleague John will join you all for discussing future funding possibilities. IG is definitely a potential program where we have, like I explained, we are looking for particularly creative proposals to improve graduate education. It does not have a traineeship component. So I want to give my best to you all again, and please stay safe and healthy. And thank you so much for this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, and thank you for such a lively discussion. We have at least one proposal that has been brought forward for future collaboration. Did anyone else want to make any parting comments?
I wanted to say a comment. This is Carletta Chief, University of Arizona, the CoInFEWS NRT. And I would like to also comment to the importance of mentorship. And especially with the Net College, like Dr. Wildcat was saying, we're not all on a pipeline. And the University of Arizona recognizes that. And we've been trying to work with Don Robinson and others because there is this need or a wanting of NSF and others to have this pipeline, but students on the reservation don't want to get on a pipeline. They want to stay within their communities because they have a real strong cultural connection and tie to their people. As Avery Denny was providing a blessing this morning, he talked about, you know, being there for thousands of years. So as a land grant university, we want to support that, not taking students off the Navajo Nation, but supporting their education within their homelands and letting them lead that, education. They have traditional knowledge that has been there for thousands of years. Science is a tool, but it's not always the answer. Also, how can we support the students to doing their education and their research within their communities, doing research that is important to their communities? So it's community-based. And thankfully for me, being at the University of Arizona, I have been able to do that type of work through being an extension specialist. Because as an extension specialist, I'm working to bridge the science with the community. I also left the field of engineering. Actually, I did my bachelor's and master's in environmental engineering for that reason, because I felt that the engineering I was doing was not helping my people. And many students come to school to do their education because they want to do their education for their people to address the pressing challenges. And if we can't support that, and if we can't do that as professionals, then we're leaving a whole lot of Indigenous people, community members, students, leaders out of that pathway. And thank you, Dr. Wildcat, for that alternative language as we decolonize what we do in engineering and science in a way that is community-based. And I pledge to support Lupita and others that are on that mission to doing so. And I hope that we can change that discourse and that dialogue of the traditional way of saying, you know, pipeline and engineering publications and so forth, because the products that come out of these partnership are not necessarily those types of publications that are typical in Research One. But even so, even if it is, I know Lupita has published many publications within that college, it's not recognized. There needs to be a recognition for community-based, community-led work where the community, where the work is addressing the community's challenges that they face. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, well said. And I think that everyone wants to continue this discussion. So, but some people may need to leave to take a break. So what I suggest is you monitor yourself and continue the discussion. We've got a great session coming up on the hour. So Cara has the time there on the Pacific Coast. It's 1 o'clock. On East Coast time, it's 4 p.m. But I too hope you continue the discussion during break. Come back though on the hour on our session on COVID-19 and FEWS challenges on the Navajo Nation. But Cara, I think we're going to leave the Zoom open if people continue this discussion.
All right. Thank you, Alice. Thank you, Cara. Thank you, Carlette. Thank you, Maya, and everybody else. I will leave. Thanks again. I really appreciate all the best to the entire workshop.
Thank you for joining us. And we'll see NSF again, at least throughout the workshop, we hope, and particularly on Friday.
Sure. Thanks.
Yeah. Yes, thank you, Alice, and thank you to all of our speakers and people who introduced our speakers. And so we will leave the Zoom open so people can continue this discussion.